Hello. Good morning, Dr. Vanessa, Dr. James, and Dr. Akila. My name is Mohammed Abdurrafe. So thank you very much for coming online. I suppose that it's very early morning in UK and something like midnight at Canada and probably afternoon in Australia. So we'll just start in a minute. I can see Dr. Akila. So it's 4 a.m. in UK, right? Oh, now I can see Dr. Vanessa as well. Thank you very much. And Dr. James is here. So Dr. James, I suppose that's 11 p.m. in Canada, right? I cannot hear you. Your mic is mute. Yes, Dr. James is now on mute.
Okay, thank you.
So our settings are at the moment that we asked you to unmute, but now I have asked them to configure that 3 of the speakers should have the rights to unmute themselves.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone.
And that's the end of the day in Australia, correct, Dr. Vanessa? Something like, I suppose, 2 p.m.?
Oh, hello. Sorry. I just realized now I'm unmuted. Yes, no, it's
Yes.
2:30 in the afternoon, so it's really a nice
Oh.
time for me. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you. वो देख सके लोगों को जो लोग बैठे उनको कैसे मिला So good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammed Abdurrafe. So it's 8:30 a.m. So I have a colleague with me, he's the chair of the session, Mr. Noman Amjad. He's the deputy chief scientist at the Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Oncology, Lahore. And then I have my colleague, Ms. Manas Kamar. She is the head of medical physics. So over to Mr. Noman for the introduction of the session, and then right away we'll start with the presentation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. So I welcome you all on the 24th Shaukat Khanum Cancer Symposium. This year, the radiation physics session is dedicated for artificial intelligence role in radiation physics. And all our talks cover the main theme. We have our first speaker, Akila Sharif, who is head of radiation therapy treatment planning, Peterborough City Hospital, UK. And she will give a talk regarding integrating artificial intelligence into clinical radiotherapy workflow. Okay.
I'm the head of treatment planning at Peterborough City Hospital. And I'll be sharing our experiences integrating artificial intelligence into clinical radiotherapy workflows. So here's an outline of what I'll be talking about today. I'll introduce our department and motivations for adopting AI in auto contouring. We will go through some of the opportunities and some of the challenges, and some detail on commissioning and testing and how we are currently using it clinically, with the benefits and the potential pitfalls. Finally, I will end with a conclusion and future direction as we see it in our department when using AI. So Beautiful City Hospital is a medium to small size centre in the northwest of England here. And we do have difficulty recruiting and retaining staff. So what we wanted to do was to improve efficiencies and treatment plan workflows within our department with the current staffing levels. We operate with 3 match variant room linacs or with multiple photon beams and multiple electron energies. The machines treat clinically 5 days a week from 8:30 to 5:30. We treat with a mixed caseload, including lung, colon, and saver, using a 4-bearing solution with Khanum virtual simulation. As we know, OAR and target contouring is an essential part of the process prior to the actual treatment planning. It does follow some strict guidelines with some standardised naming conventions. Manual contouring is pretty time consuming. It can take between 30 to 60 minutes per patient. With the currently available mainly recommendation using thresholds or atlas-based systems. So here you can see a partial simplified treatment planning pathway. It starts with the CT scan being taken and being fused with MR PET images or diagnostic routing images. We then delineate OALs, and that's normally done by our dosimetrist, clinical oncologist, followed by delineation of the target and the check of the OAL by the clinical oncologist. So as our patient numbers have increased, this part of the pathway is what's been slowing us down with our patient throughput in the department. So we want to look at how AI would help. Now, as we all know, the multi-contouring guidelines are very well established. We've got the SABER Consortium guidelines, how we should contour and what we should contour. SABER. We've also got the ESTRO guidelines for things like prostate and nodes, breast and IMC patients. So in the UK, we do tend to follow these guidelines quite closely. We've also got this requirement for from the Royal College of Radiologists, which requires us to peer review any contours that are quite complex, such as prostate and nodes and breast and IMC patients. We also have a standardised naming convention, which comes from this global harmonisation group for clinical trials, where we name and label OARs and CTVs and targets in a particular way. So AI-based auto contouring, the idea was this will improve efficiency. It will help and reduce inter-observer variation and for us to do treatment planning and technique development. Really, our approach aimed to integrate the AI software as a support tool, ensuring dosimetrists and clinicians remained in control of the process, but streamlined the manual process of actually doing the contouring. So that was our aim. I think we achieved it, and I'll show you in this presentation how we achieved that. So there were quite a few challenges in our way prior to implementation of the AI software. The first challenge was to get IT on board, give us access to the software and set up a cloud server. We also had to get clearance from the Trust Information Governance Department to allow us to send the patient data out of the hospital. So the AI Envision company actually gave us a lot of information on how we would de-identify the patient before it left the hospital, how it would be de-identified, it would then be encrypted, and then it would be worked on, then it would be identified on entering the hospital and then attached to the My Patient file inside hospital. The company provided us with all the documents, which were sort of legal documents. We also then had to complete a hazard log with the IT department, which looked at the details and the risk associated with the software and use of the software, and to mitigate any of the risks associated with the software, such as what's the worst thing that could happen while using this software, and what would you do if this software wasn't available, etc. And the other thing that Envision were very good at was providing us with information on what Envision was supposed to be used for. It is only to be used by qualified medical personnel, such as physicians, and it is classified as a Class 1 medical device. So that was really great. All these documents really helped get this through the approval process and the trust. The next step was to engage the stakeholders. We held quite a number of meetings and attended quite a number of departmental meetings. We organised demonstrations and training to ensure that understanding was there and education was there for all team members. These were recorded for people who could not attend, so they could at a later date. We did involve the entire team, from admin to consultants, ensuring workflows were accurate and consistent, and the process did not add any additional complexity. And the key thing that the clinical team really wanted from us was that the process did not increase the time taken to complete the tasks of the contouring or the CTV contours. We did have challenges like every department has, which was the limits that were placed on us due to the resources. Physics staff were completely overrun with all the work that needed to be done and were very stretched. Clinicians said they did not have time to look at this for us, and symmetrists were trying to balance the clinical workload with what we were asking them to do. I think the buy-in came because we sort of said that this will help you, and if you could just help us assess this for right clinical use, we can then release it into clinical use. So a little bit of a push from everybody would really help us move this forward, and that seemed to work. Great. We did decide to do a few things a little bit differently. The standard process is to have the CT images sent directly from the CT scanners to the AI software. We decided that we did not want to do this because that meant having a CT scanner protocol for every site that you wanted to send that you might want to customize. So in our department, we tend to have 3 or 4 CT scanner protocols: pelvis, thorax, head and neck. We don't have multiple for different sites. So we decided to send it from our Persona software, where we could then be in control of the process. We also decided that what we wanted to do was that commission the AI software by testing a set of anonymized clinical patients with clinical contours that have been approved by the consultants, and use these to assess and compare the AI generated content to the clinical contours. These were then also used to modify and to tidy up the site-specific Envision access as part of a continuous improvement plan before go live. The main aim was to get the clinical teams testing this software, and that was to encourage engagement with the software and make sure that the software was working when someone who hadn't had or hadn't spent too much time on it and wanted to use it clinically was able to use it, that the workflow and the work instructions were accurate, and that the design of it worked with the way people were working in the clinic. We also wanted to make sure that the labels that we'd added in the configuration were correct, and we wanted to verify that Persona script still generating the required empty structures that we need them to then generate. Most importantly, I think the thing we really wanted was a feedback process to monitor performance and drive continuous improvement while we were testing and post go live. And the only way we could do that was by having the clinical teams fully engaged in the process. So here's another picture of the pathway. So this was the old pathway, and the new AI pathway is here below. The only difference you can see is that instead of the contours being delineated by the dosimetrists and clinical technologists, they are now just being checked and then they're confirmed, and then the patient moves on to the next step where the consultant confirms the OAR and delineates or corrects the CTE before going to the plan production. So this slide actually shows that some of the model customization that we did for our breast patients, and you can see here on this slide that for a breast patient we were able to create a right breast and left breast, and we were able to switch off all the structures that we did not want to use clinically within the planning process. So the only one we tend to use is breast, heart and lung. So we just switched on the ones that we needed, and any additional structures were actually switched off. This is a copy of the Excel sheet that we used for the clinical testing of the anonymized patients. So you can see each of the tabs depicts a treatment site. We've got breast, chest wall, IMC, prostate and nodes, rectum and bladder. And what we were doing was we were looking at the work instructions and checking that the workflow worked. We were looking at the naming convention that was used and the colours that we'd given the structures was correct. We were also comparing the clinical structures to what the AI was generating. This slide shows the first iteration of the structures that were generated. The blue is the clinical structure. The red is what was generated by Envision. As you can see, there are differences, and we tried to mitigate the differences and see what we could do about them. In the clinical structure, we actually cropped 5 mil from the skin surface and 5 mil from the lung. So we investigated how we could do that. For breast patients, we tend to use a field-based PTV, which is generated from the fields as well. So we wanted to create a similar structure. This slide shows that we did that by following some sort of little bit of programming, I guess, and some Boolean operators. So we took the body structure and eroded it from the skin surface by 5 millimeters, and also from the lung. And the other thing, sort of feedback we had from clinical teams was, could we have the structures delineated only on every third slice, as we do 2.5 millimeter cuts? And that meant that there was less slices for the team to edit before they could interpolate to create the final structure. So that was something that was requested by clinical teams. For breast and SPF nodes, all the nodal levels are contoured by the AI, and normally this would have been completed by the consultants, which was very time consuming for them. And in fact, we would find that they would struggle to do this in a timely manner. So these are structures shown here that are depicted by the AI. You can see that the time taken to do this contours was 272 seconds. During the time when this task was being completed by the AI, other admin tasks can be completed. You don't have to sit there on the same screen. You can get on and do things. So it really isn't time wasted. So this model customization for prostate and lymph nodes, you can see that what we did was for the lymph nodes, we create the lymph node and crop from muscle and bone, and we use the vessels as a tool to delineate the lymph node. So this shows what we can do. We did a Boolean operation on all the muscle and made a single muscle structure, did the same with the bones, got all the bone structures and did a pruning operation on those. And then hopefully in the next slide, I can show you some of the structures that were generated. So you can see the rectum, penile bowl, the femoral head, as per the naming convention, bladder, rectum, bowel, loops, as you go up. And then just switching on the muscles, bone, and the lymph nodes, which are also done on every third slice. And as we come down, you can see the lymph nodes being displayed on every third slice. As we come down, and we do use contrast scans to sort of highlight the vessels, but you don't need to with M vision at all. It just tracks the nodes. We have since using M vision stopped using contrast on scans on pelvis patients as well, and that does save on the radiation dose as well. So you do not need to do 2 scans, you just do the 1 scan without contrast. Excellent. So this slide shows you the time saving that was, or average time saving for the year ending in December 2024. This was taken from approximately 1,000 patients. Bear in mind, most of our patients are breast and pelvis. And then most of our patients are breast and pelvis patients. We do have safe patients as well, but they are in the double digits, not in the hundreds. This table shows the average time when we were manually contouring things. So you can see for pelvis with nodes, the symmetrist manual contouring takes 150 minutes. And then once we're using AI, it took 30 minutes to review. That's time saving of 120 minutes. 120 minutes that could have been spent on something else. And you can see that the same thing goes right the way down. We also tried to gather data for doctors' manual contouring for target and review of the OAR. Again, there was a time saving, but unfortunately the data is based on what the doctors thought. They didn't actually gather the data for us, but this is what they thought that they were spending post the AI. We did a quick calculation and figured out that we were saving 484 hours annually just by the dysmetry team alone for the contours, which equates to 65 working days. And that's a lot of time saving just by using some software. And the cost was £13 per patient, which is also quite good. After several iterations, we were able to use the AI models for all treatment sites. We made a decision to keep the breast tangent to be the PTV to be growing manually using the tangent fields using Prosoma, and that's partly to keep Prosoma competence in place. The AI generated contours are reviewed at multiple checkpoints pathway by the dosimetrists, the consultants, and planners, and that just ensures one confidence in the system. To any issues that are seen, they're picked up quickly, ensuring both safety and accuracy for each patient. AI has reduced the manual workload by a significant amount, up to about 60% for the contouring. Our consultants report lower stress levels and more time available for spending with complex planning techniques and technique development. We have been able to take part in the clinical trials due to this AI contouring software being available to us. And we've also reduced the scan plan to treat time from 12 days to 7 days, which is a real big improvement in our clinic. We did discuss some of the potential pitfalls as a department, and we recognised that there were some risks. There was over-reliance on AI-generated contours, so we wanted to highlight which contours were produced by the AI, specifically target contours and OARs that would normally be contoured by the consultant. And we did this by adding a _NV to each of the controls that needed review by the consultant. Their sign-off is depicted by them signing off and removing the MV at the end of each control and then hitting save. Right, so the next thing was that we've just started into is a dose prediction software, and it's called Dose Plus by the same company. We are piloting it at the moment, and we only got access to it last week. This uses machine learning to generate patient-specific 3D dose distribution based on the anatomy that you upload to the cloud. The anatomy plus the structure set. This seems to suggest that it will increase planning efficiency and reduce the trial and error for better decision making for the more complex cases. Okay. This is taken straight from the Envision website, and at the moment the only model they have set up is for prostate and pelvic lymph node radiotherapy. They say that they've validated it across multiple institutions, and the model actually supports inverse planning for prostate and lymph nodes. The key benefits really are that there is reduced input. You just need to use DICOM image data set, and you just need the structure set, prostate, bladder, rectum, and bowel. Is all you need, and the PTV. And you can see that the processing time is roughly 2 minutes. The system supports most of the standard fractionation schemes, and you can configure that within the software as well. The process, as I say, has speeded up the assessment of more complex patients, and they say that it works with all major treatment planning systems. I haven't checked this through as yet, but it's really interesting that these are the claims that they are making. But I do agree with them that it could help identify situations requiring early trade-off between target coverage and organ sparing, reducing the trial and error method of planning that we tend to use in most planning departments. As time goes on, most people who've been in radiotherapy treatment planning for a while can see the trends and can see what is achievable and what is not, just due to the anatomy and the organs at risk. I have a demo here. Hopefully I can play this for you. So this is a demo version of the Dose Plus software. I've uploaded an anonymized patient in there, and you can see that the time taken for the calculation was 1 minute 36. You select the model that you're using, you enter the dose for each of the volumes, and then you just hit start, and it goes through and generates a dose distribution based on a VMAT type dose distribution. It gives you the dose information, gives you DVH information, and it gives you the max, min, and mean doses. So here's a closer look at the DVHs that were produced by this AI Dose Plus. You can see for most of the structured bladder, bowel, PTVs, and rectum, the graphs look very similar between the AI and the clinical graphs produced by Eclipse. So that's a clinical patient. And then I had a closer look at the minimum, maximum, and mean doses. And overall, we did better in the clinical plan, just marginally, with the maximum dose and the mean dose. So this was a standard simple prostate case, so I wasn't expecting anything more than that. But I haven't had time to look at the more complex cases, but that is the idea going forward. We will investigate this and look at the more complex cases. In the meantime, what I wanted to present was that there is a few case studies done on this software, so I can share that with you. This was completed at Newcastle, and we plan to repeat the work completed by them on some of our clinical cases. The interesting thing and the key findings are that for 30 cases that they looked at, the results are very, very similar. So you can see that the average 348 grey structure for clinical plan average was 8.6 versus Dose Plus, which was 9.6, and for bladder 13 compared to Dose Plus, which to 12.1. And I think this is the key thing, isn't it? That you can possibly help reduce the time taken to plan these more complex cases and reduce the trial error. So I suppose that is what needs validating to make sure that that is actually the case with some of our clinical cases. So that is what we intend to do. So in conclusion, we've successfully implemented AI-based water contouring at Peterborough City Hospital, even with the limited resources. The aim was to save time, improve accuracy, and ensure consistency by following international guidelines. While IT approvals and resource constraints were challenging, the rollout is now complete and the software is intended for use. Significantly reduce the manual contouring workload, freeing up time for the team to focus on maintaining high quality care, developing new techniques and participating in more clinical trial. Despite the limited time and staff that we had available to us, we did prioritise the training and system customisation, and I think that's well worth it to ensure smooth implementation. There is a feedback process in place that needs to make continuous improvement based on the user experience, and I'm pleased to report that the system has been running reliably with no maintenance issues or problems over the last month. Going forward, we plan to continue using AI-generated OARs where appropriate, OARs for everything, and where appropriate, CTVs across all of treatment sites, refining the system through clinical feedback. We are trying to avoid over-reliance, and current checking processes will remain in place, though we do aim to streamline these as confidence grows. For the dose prediction software, the next step is completing the pilot study, validating results on historic complex cases, and exploring its routine use in the clinic and how we want to implement that. And we're hoping that this is going to help us make quicker decisions on complex planning cases. And the last slide is some references that I've used in here. One of them, the very first one, is the Envision AI Knowledge Center. That's the AI software that they're using. Please do take one of those, and thank you very much for your attention. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sherry, for the lovely talk. We will leave the questions towards the end of the session. Continuing on our theme, our second speaker is Dr. James Chow. He's a professor of medical physics at University of Toronto. And his talk is, the topic is Monte Carlo simulation and artificial intelligence in radiotherapy and patient care.
I'm a professor in the Department of Radiation Oncology at University of Toronto, Canada. Today, I'd like to say something about what they call simulation and artificial intelligence in radiotherapy and patient care. For the content of this talk, I would like to review the Monte Carlo simulation and the AI and machine learning. I also want to talk about the application of the nanoparticle and hence the radiotherapy, and also the application of AI-assisted educational chatbot in radiotherapy. What is Monte Carlo simulation? It is a mathematical technique, or we use it to calculate something based on the repeated random sampling, when sometimes the absolute solution is very difficult to achieve. To give you an example, I would like to show you how to calculate the value of time. That means it's this number 3.141159 and so on, using the Monte Carlo simulation. To do that, we need to draw a unit square. That means a square with the dimension x and y both equal to 1. And then from there, I draw a quarter circle, also with the radius equal to 1. So that you can say that the area of the square AS equals 1. Area of the quarter circle, of course, is a quarter of pi r squared. R is equal to 1. So AC is equal to pi over 4. From there, I can say that the fraction P of the random points inside the quarter circle is equal to pi over 4. If you consider you use n number of points, or I can say the random point, and then you count the random points within the square, which are inside of the circle, that's NC. I can therefore write down pi is equal to 4 times NC divided by n. That means you count all the points within the quarter circle. That means the dot red color, and you excluded those blue color. You count this red dot, which is the number is equal to NC. You can calculate the value of pi. So that gives you a very simple example how to use Monte Carlo simulation to calculate the value of pi. We find that the accuracy of the Monte Carlo simulation is related to the number of experiments, or what we call the number of pitches. From this diagram, you see that the uncertainty of pi, that is the uncertainty of the value of pi, depends on the number of times. If we try a lot of times, that means we have a lot of points at the location within the unit square, you will have more accurate result. And that is the reason, because we do more experiment, or you increase the number of Monte Carlo iterations, you will get a more accurate result. Therefore, we can say that the simulation is time consuming because the accuracy depends on the number of trials. Now, Monte Carlo simulation is very useful in narrow symmetries. And why we need to use narrow symmetry? Why we need to calculate narrow symmetries in radiotherapy? The reason is that because you can understand that radiotherapy is to use radiation to kill the cancer cell. That means we use ionizing particle or ionizing radiation to damage the DNA of the cancer cell. Now you can see that the dimension of the DNA or the scale of the DNA is within the narrow scale. It's very, very small. Therefore, we need to calculate what we call narrow symmetry, which is fit to the scale of the DNA using the Monte Carlo simulation. And in the Monte Carlo simulation, we have what we call a UM by UM Monte Carlo code, and which can simulate it and contrast with the narrow scale. And the code, one of the codes we call it Gen4 DNA, and which is free of charge to download from the website. Now, we are now going to talk something about the AI and the machine learning. So what's AI? AI refers to the environment of a computer system that can perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. And AI can also be classified into two types. One is the weak AI, and one is the strong AI. And AI is designed to perform specific tasks, and general AI, or we call it narrow AI, or weak AI, and the general AI, or the strong AI, is designed to perform any task that the human can. And machine learning is different from AI because it's only a subset of the AI that involves training algorithms to learn from data. So we provide data for the program to the AI, so that the AI learn from the data, or we can call it we train the AI, or we have a training algorithm from a data set. So without being programmed, or in other words, machine learning is a method of teaching the computer to learn from data and make prediction or decision based on that data. And AI is a broad field of computer science that involves the development of intelligent computer systems, while machine learning is a specific approach to building the AI system that involves training algorithms to learn from data. So AI is a much broader field, and machine learning is a subset of the AI. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of applications of Monte Carlo simulation and AI in radiotherapy and patient care. First, I would like to say something about nanoparticle enhanced radiotherapy, focusing on the DNA symmetry and the DNA damage. And then I would like to say something about the AI-assisted educational chatbot related to the radiotherapy training and also related to the radiation safety. The goal of radiation treatment plan. So in radiotherapy, we are going to treat the cancer patient using radiation, and we need to have a radiation treatment plan. The goal, the aim of that treatment plan is to produce a conformal dose distribution at the tumor target volume while sparing the normal tissue of the critical organs. But the question is, how to do that? Now you can look at this example. It's the prostate cancer patient, and that is the CD image. We would like to treat this target, which is the prostate, the red contour. And if you have the external bit, irradiate that red contour, that prostate volume, you are unavoidable with the better yellow contour, the rectum, and the both and left and right femoral head. They are the critical organs. And you don't want to irradiate those critical organs, that is the bladder, the rectum, and also the femoral heads, but you only want to irradiate the target. But unfortunately, if you use external beam, you will need to pass through those critical organs in order to irradiate the target. So that means it's quite difficult. And how can we do that? Now we have a technique called nanoparticle enhanced radiotherapy. And in cancer treatment, we can add nanoparticle, or what we call a heavy active contrast agent, to the target, that means the tumor. That agent, or the nanoparticles, a very popular one is the gold nanoparticle, can enhance the contrast of the tumor, because the nanoparticle, for example, the gold nanoparticle, has heavy atom in the gold. That means if you add the gold to the tumor, it will increase the compositional atomic number of the tumor, and it will enhance the contrast of the tumor in medical imaging. That means we can see the tumor here, and that can benefit the radiation being targeted. And other good thing to add gold nanoparticles or nanoparticles to the tumor is that because the increase of the compositional atomic number, we will have an increase of the dose absorption. So we absorb, the tumor absorb more dose. That means it will increase the cancer cell. And why cancer cell is important? And here you will see, you will learn that in fact, cancer cell kill is related to the DNA damage. We want to kill the tumor, we want to treat the tumor, we have to kill the cancer cell within the tumor. And if you want to kill the cancer cell of the tumor, we have to damage the DNA of the cancer cell. How to damage the DNA of the cancer cell? We have two types of DNA damage. One we call double strand break, and other we call single strand break. And how to produce double or single strand break? The answer is to add nanoparticle or gold nanoparticle. Because we know that if you add nanoparticle or gold nanoparticle, for example, and then irradiate the gold nanoparticle inside the tumor, it can enhance secondary electron. And that secondary electron field, this secondary electron can help to damage the DNA and produce double strand break. When DNA is damaged, cancer cell reproduction is not possible. So we call it cancer cell kill, and the tumor is treated. Now this will give you a plot diagram, telling you how the DNA damage and the cancer cell kill will mix it together. So we will have first different nanoparticles added to the tumor, and then we will have some interaction. For example, the nanoparticle will generate secondary electron, as I just mentioned before, or it can generate some ROS, reactive oxygen species. And this is some faster molecule, which can also have. So the covalent particle basically can produce second electron or can produce ROS. And finally, they produce DNA damage, like double stranded is the most serious DNA damage of the cancer cell. So the conclusion is that covalent particle is a radiosensitizer, it's a dose enhancer because it increases the dose. It can also increase the contrast of the medical image, so we can see the tumor here, and that can enhance the radiation treatment panel. Now, however, we know that now, for example, if you add covalent particle to the tumor, we can benefit the cell kill or the cancer treatment. But we know that we have different nanoparticle variables, for example, the size, the slit concentration, the type distribution pattern. We also have different beam variables, right? So we need to optimize the nanoparticle with what I mentioned with those different beam and nanoparticle variables in order to optimize the best cancer cell kill radiofrequency. Now you can do it experimentally and try different sizes, different. You don't need to try covalent, try platinum or iron nanoparticle, but you need to do a lot of experiments to do that. So computer simulation can help to optimize the performance of the covalent particle very well in radiofrequency. That is the why we need to do computer simulation in this way. Now, let me show you some results of my Monte Carlo simulations. First, it's related to the background voltage, photon beam, and also the background voltage electron beam, the profile transfer pattern. The simulation geometry is easy. We have the covalent particle, we have the DNA. We can vary the distance between the particle and the DNA. And we also use different sizes of the particles, and then we use different energy of the photons, for example, from 5, 5, 15, and 25 MeV. We define the dose enhancement ratio, which is the dose in the DNA with the covalent particle addition, and divided by the dose in the DNA without covalent particle addition. So we have that ratio set the results. DDR larger than 1, of course, we will have good dose enhancement. That's the results that we use different photon beam energy and also we calculate those enhancement ratio. So we can use a simulation to find that if you increase the photon beam energy within different radius of the particle, you will have less dose enhancement to increase the photon energy. For example, this is radius 3, radius equal to 50 nanometer. So from the simulation, basically you can find out the dose enhancement, that is dose enhancement ratio with respect to different beam energy, particle size, and distance between the particle and the DNA. So that will give us a very good information to estimate how good is the results based on the simulation in the radio fat when covalent particle is added in the photon fat. Now, how about the electron beams? In here, we have the DNA damage using electron beam. You see here, you have the covalent particle. We weighted it by electron beam, and this is the DNA, and there's the DNA model we used. And we also tried the covalent particle with different sizes, and we keep the mass of the covalent particle to be the same. So from A, B, C, the mass of the covalent particle is the same. However, we can just divide 1 to 2, and these two combined together the figure. Okay, so we keep the mass of the covalent particle constant, and then we have different number of particles, covalent particles, beside the DNA. Look at the results. You see the total strand break, that means the DNA damage, is related to the energy of the electron. And then we will have 0 covalent particle, 1, 2, 4, 4. That means corresponding to 1, 2, 4. That means it's sterile damage. And from that simulation, you will find out the relationship between the damage and the end. And that is also the result of how we calculate the single strand break and the double strand break. And with the number of covalent particles. You find that if you increase the number of covalent particles, you will increase the double strand break, the number of double strand break. That means you will enhance the cancer cell kill if you increase the number of the covalent particles. This is the newest result, just published this month, is to calculate the ROX, that means the reactive oxygen species under the ultra high rate electron wave. Dose rate is up to 150 gray per second. Very high dose rate is related to what we call fast rate of effect. Fast rate of effect. And that is the model we use it and calculated the particles with different diameter and diameter. The diameter is 5 nanometer and 50 to 100 nanometer. And that is the A, B, C, D. They are the distance between the particle and the DNA. So this simulation tells us how this ROS is related to the dose rate and also the size of the particle and also the distance between the particle and the DNA. Now, after showing you some molecular simulation, I would like to say something about history pattern to test other field of study. First, I want to say what's chatbot. So chatbot is a computer program or computer system that human use natural human language in the computer. But the idea is not new because in 1950, Alan Turing proposed the question can the same thing. So here's the very famous Turing test. That means if we have a human variable to identify and to communicate with two systems, one physically is a human and one is a computer. And when the human variable cannot identify, it is communicating with a computer or human. That means the computer is very secret. So the computer communication basically same as the human communication, and we define the Turing test is passed. We have the NLP, natural language processing, which is part of the AI, and it's the field of AI that focuses on the interaction between computer and human language. So that is a very interesting table telling you the relationship between AI, machine learning, NLP, and then large language model. So what we find from the Copilot, from the ChatGPT, and then that is the GPT training model. From this model, we will understand the relationship between AI, ML, NLP, LLM, and the GPT. They are all very important to create the chatbot. So NLP has some common ways. For example, there's the intent recognition. It can detect the intent of the user. Get the lambda entity recognition, sentiment analysis. They can do sentiment analysis, and of course, language translation. So the motivation to create chatbot is that because most hospital websites have existing information of cancer information. However, they are usually a list of topics which are neither interactive nor offering any question. But that means the website is only a website to provide cancer information. It's not. And sometimes cancer patients, family, or practitioners are challenging, often stressful situation wanting to access accurate information as efficiently as possible. And because, as I said, instead of any information, especially on the radio quality, and we need someone with professional knowledge who can listen to them. So a communication or a consultational agent is necessary so that the user or the patient can communicate in order to the agent or the computer in order to acquire some cancer information. Now this gives you a very simple flowchart of the structure of the chatbot. So the chatbot basically will create and introduce the chatbot itself, and then they will communicate with the user. And this will give you some examples. For example, the bot will first introduce himself and ask the user question. And the bot tries to identify the user as a patient, radiation staff, or general public, because these different user groups will have their different knowledge, and they will ask different questions. For example, the user answered that the user was a radiation staff, and it's a sentence, so the bot will display a list of items which can fit to the radiation staff or suitable for the radiation staff. Okay, so for example, they say the content of these different categories of information, such as patient consultation, simulation, planning. So there are those items of all the data which will be found by the radiation staff, and then the conservation can go ahead. Now, for example, the user of the radiation staff select a simulation of the list. And the bot further asks the user to clarify if the interested CDC or conventional SIM, and the user only needed to answer or click the icon. So there's instead of typing something, we can just click the icon to answer the question. And of course, the user can directly answer the bot question. For example, ask what is the clinical trial, the bot can answer. And then the bot may ask a question of the user. For example, after answering the question, the bot may ask the user, for example, different things of clinical trial, the user to pick up the phrase, and the bot will then explain further phase 1 trial with the details. So that's a communication. And chatbot radiation safety is another chatbot created, and from there, the bot will continue to ask the user different radiation safety questions. Some of them are true and false questions, some of them are multiple choice questions. And finally, after answering, for example, 15 questions, the bot will display whether the question is answered correctly or incorrect. Okay, so from there, the user will learn the knowledge of the radiation safety from the chatbot. This shows you what we say natural language processing. So when you design the chatbot, there's something like the patient facing and the radiation staff or the physician facing. So you need to identify whether the chatbot is talking to a patient or the chatbot is talking to a radiation staff or clinical staff, because they have different data set, things to do, and they have a different need, or different information to understand. So the conclusion is that first, the low-level particles are proven to be an effective radio sanitizer, among other heavy active radio sanitizer in radiotherapy, and find the molecular technique on variable security make simulation of DNA and low-level particle signature possible. Therefore, we can conclude molecular simulation of DNA damage provide useful information in the dependency of nanoparticle and radiation properties of those enhancements. On the other hand, chatbot was built for interdisciplinary education purpose for the patients, general public, and radiation staff. And the bot may be used by the center or some private sectors, such as high school, community centers, to promote cancer preventive measure and screening for a healthy life or educate users for what is cancer and behavioral fact. And finally, I would like to acknowledge the CIHR to provide funding for this project. Thank you very much. I think it's this presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chow, for a nice presentation. It was very informative and have bright ideas for future pathway. Our next speaker will be Vanessa Penitire, and she is a senior medical physicist at Peter MacCallum Cancer Hospital, Melbourne, Australia. And her talk will cover artificial intelligence application in radiation oncology, present and future. Over to you, Dr. Vanessa.
Good morning. Senior medical physicist at Peter MacCallum Cancer Center, and I would like to thank very much the organizers for giving me the opportunity to give an update on the present and the future of AI applications in radiation oncology. I'm really sorry I can't be with you today, but here I am. I hope I can really excite you with all of the new developments in this field. So these are my disclosures. So we know, because we work in it, that radiotherapy is one of the most complex treatment modalities provided in hospitals. And I'm not saying it because I'm biased, because I'm a medical physicist, but also, and I'm not saying it because we have very sophisticated machines that can sort of deliver very precise dose of radiation with sub-millimeter accuracy. But I'm also saying it because of the complexity of the processes and the workflow that we use every day to treat our patients. So let's have a look at these workflows, because I think it's important to have a vision of what we're doing nowadays to see where AI comes into effect. So the first, of course, is the imaging profiling. So our patient, most of the time, they come with already a diagnostic scan, and then we perform a planning scan, which is a scan that is done in a CT scan and calibrated for radiotherapy. All this information is then sent to our treatment planning system and used in order to perform what we call the contouring or outlining of the tumor and the open sepals. So this is probably one of the most time-consuming parts of our process. So we have a planning scan, and we have to send this planning scan to our clinician that have to contour the tumor. In some cases, they also contour the nodes. They have to give us an idea of the macroscopic spread so that we have to define the CTV. And finally, we have to define also a PTV, is sort of included in order to take into account all those random and systematic errors that we have in our treatment. Additionally, though, we also have to contour quite a large amount of organs at risk. In particular, we have treatment site like this, like the head and neck treatment site. And this can be a very time-consuming process in which both the clinicians and also in some cases medical physicists or radiation therapists have input their time. So this process can take a couple of hours, even more if we have a very specialized type of treatment. Once we've done all these steps, we finally get to this point, which is the plan optimization. Plan optimization is an iterative process in which the planners use either a forward type of planning technique or an inverse planning technique in order to take into account where the dose should be delivered to the tumor and also to the organs at risk. This iterative process, which can take from hours to days, will then give us a dose distribution that is then sort of looked at with the clinicians in order to then obtain the, accurate dose distribution that we want to give to our patients. And finally, we deliver that radiation on our treatment machines. So you can see here that there are a lot of steps, and also these steps can take quite a lot of time. We're talking about from 1 to 4 work days. In some cases, these steps can take a lot of time if they are associated to a very unique specialized technique. So obviously there is a lot of room for AI to come into play. And so I wanted to show you where we can automate and where we are currently automating some of these tasks. So this is a very nice graph, which was published a few years ago, Radiotherapy in Oncology, in which the authors have looked at all the processes in our treatment chain and have seen where we can potentially automate. So the first one is obviously automated segmentation. Then we can automate in an area that is called the synthetic CT. For example, if we want to go from the MRI to a city that then we want to use for planning. And obviously, we also have automation by means of the automated planning. Additionally, as you know, in radiation therapy, we have to do quite a lot of quality assurance in order to make sure that this treatment can be delivered safe to our patients. And so there are steps in which we can also automate quality assurance. Because I don't have a lot of time today, I will only focus on automated segmentation and automated planning. So let's start from automated segmentation. So try to automate that process of contouring the tumors and the organs at risk. Let's start from the organs at risk, which is one of the most exciting developments, certainly one that has benefited a lot of centers around the world. So starting from the organs at risk segmentation, there are many commercial products that are available today, which are mostly based on deep learning and are used in many clinics around the world. This is a nice publication from colleagues in Sydney, in which they've looked at performance of multiple AI-based tool autocontouring system in organs at risk delineation. So as you know, there is quite a lot of products out there that can be used. And what they've done is that they've taken their expert contours, so the contours that were done by their own clinicians, and they've compared them to all of these systems. So what they found, and it is very pleasing, is that most of these AI tools are able to produce contours that are comparable to the expert contours. Where these systems tend to fail is that they have reduced performance in case of small or complex anatomical structures. For example, in case of those little structures that we have, like the brachial plexus, or, for example, structures such as the cochlea, in which it is quite difficult to have consistency between the different contours. So what they concluded from this work is that it is still essential to review these contours produced by the AI system for clinical uses. And I think this is a very important step that we have to keep in mind. So the responsibility ultimately still lies on us. But is there a real benefit of going from an automated contouring to our manual contouring to an automated contouring? Yes, there is. And this nice publication, which was a few years ago, so some of these numbers probably have changed, has shown us a very nice increase in productivity by using these tools. So if we take the example of head and neck, you can see here that in order to contour 19 structures, the authors have said that in their execution, a manual contouring process would take up to 19 minutes. I did check with the people in my department, and it's true that it takes them a few hours to do so. So what they've shown in their work is that any of the sort of more automated tools, independently on the vendors, has quite an increase in productivity. You can see here that we have increases up to 90% in terms of time saving for these type of contours. So there is definitely a benefit, and this is the reason why we're all trying to implement them in our clinical practice. Obviously, if we move from the organs at risk to the tumor, this changes quite substantially. So the tumor segmentation or the target segmentation as we define it in radiation oncology is much more challenging. And this is due to the variation in volume, size, and the overlapping structures. Additionally, in order to contour some of these targets, we might not use only the CT scan, but we might use MRIs, we might use PET. And we might have a lot of difference in the quality and the consistency of the imaging data. So we have different imaging protocols, we have artifacts, different patient positioning. It's not unknown, like unheard of, that we have patients with their arms up in radiation therapy that are scared with the arms down when they do their PET CT. So obviously this makes this problem much more challenging and much more difficult to sort of handle with some algorithms. The other very important factor is the quality of the target contours. There is a lot of inter-observer variability. So different clinicians might contour the same tumor in a very different way. So the CTV segmentation is not only a segmentation problem because it includes macroscopic extensions, which require knowledge of the patterns of tumor progression and also physician clinical information. Despite that, though, there is a lot of research in progress. So this is a nice work that was published by colleagues in the United States, in which they looked at using deep learning models in order to generate lymph node contours. And I have to tell you that since then, quite a few of the vendors have implemented lymph contours that still need to be checked by the radiation oncologist, but have quite a good performance. In this work, what they did is that they looked at 71 head and neck patients and have compared the expert contours versus AI. What they found is that they found an agreement of about 0.8 and 0.9 using a dice score coefficient. And when they looked at the qualitatively at the contours, what they found that they were 99% clinically acceptable, or they required very minor edits. So as I said, this is not a problem of contour that can be taken into account by a mathematical algorithm, but it's also a problem that requires the knowledge of the function. This is very nice, interesting work that was published by the European Chorus, by the group of Steen and Foreman, in which they looked at including that knowledge into the sort of model training. So they created what they call an interactive learning model. So what they've done is that they've taken 204 data sets, and these were a mixture of CT, PET, MR, of tumor and lymph nodes. They've started with a full baseline, so they've only used the images and the sort of contours that they had in the big scans. And then they retrained them by using annotations. As you know, as some of you are clinicians here in the class, it takes quite a lot of time to annotate an entire set of contours. So what they've done is that they've taken only one or two or few slices and contours, and they have annotated only those. And what they've shown is that there's been quite an increase in the prediction of the contours when they've included these annotations. So this is very beneficial and can be done quite easily and quite efficiently. So following the annotation journey, though, another aspect that I said it's very much in progress. There is a lot of research going on. Even our group at the Khanum Cancer Center is looking into it. Is the step of automated planning. It is a very exciting time for us in radiation oncology. And as you know very well, treatment planning has evolved very fast during the past, let's say, 10 to 20 years. And now we have plans like this, so plans in which we can very much stop the dose around the organs every target to tumor. And the primary goal is that the trial for a secondary goal came up that showed that current quality was very much predictive of the patients. So all those plans that have been measured in the evaluation is confirmed that and the first survival of the friends that were this is something that we have to take into account when we consider how much the value is at the point of life. The problem is there has been a lot of development, and the rest of the value is every day, and then obviously AI and something in the past. However, we have to become this as far as the topic. Well, starting from our mind of topic here. All the steps that I made for the book on the map and this kind of and then that's there has been sentence that is the whole criteria of the it's not going to make a good value and the sequence. But not the criteria of the regulation, just things. The forms of not only one family defined, but a sequence defined. Those to be not here and it's going to be good. In order to achieve this really parents, the benefits that we have so that's nice for them. My personal favorite is this third one, which I think I will focus on with the knowledge-based one and all. Although we call it knowledge-based one, the knowledge-based one and on the basis of its greatest step. The old plans So I think one of the examples that I will the final system converted 13.5 points and incorporated in-volume prediction into the plan optimization. So what rapid plan does is that it's based on a library of a certain types of plan. For example, if we take impact prospect already programmed, and it correlates the dose parameters, so the dose distribution, the coverage, and the geometries of the training data set. Then the information is extracted from the library plans and the model is spread. So what happens then when you have a new geometry? The model is then applied for starting the optimization process, and it uses the anatomy to describe those and the field arrangement, and then use the trained rapid plan models in order to generate the prediction range for the dose volume histograms for all the organ sectors. And it provides you these. So these are line objectives that help the optimizer achieve the estimated dose volume histogram. And usually the idea is on the lower boundaries in order to have the best plan. So these type of models have been used quite a lot around the world. They have a very big advantage because a model itself can be shared between institutions because it doesn't contain patient information. We have exploited this in our sort of region in Australia, in Victoria, by sharing model across all the public sector sort of centers. What we have done is that not only we've shared models between each other in order to make each other more skilled and in order to provide the same quality plans around the state, but what we've also done is that we have built models together by using patients from all the different centers for all those anatomical sites where, for example, a center is more skilled than another centers, because there are centers that will not treat so many of these sort of cases. So, for example, at Peter MacCallum Cancer Center, at the moment, we use routinely 11 rapid plan models, and 6 of them have been built in collaboration with other centers around the world. Centers around the region. Additionally, what we have done also is that we've been able to share these models across the world as well. And what we've done is that we've shared some of our model with a group in Italy, and they've shared some model with us. And so we've been able to sort of share knowledge, even at a more international level. But where are we going with the automated planning? I think it is interesting that all of this process can be really collapsed into one process. So we are going towards the use of AI that can implement all the human operation and reasoning logics based on the patient anatomy. So these are already in process of being built. So there is a lot of research about the use of these tools, and they're primarily based on deep learning. And these deep learning approaches are primarily based on neural network. That, as you know, neural network also follows a little bit the networks that we have in our brain. So there is research out there in which authors have looked at using deep learning methods in order to perform automated planning or automated sort of prediction of beam orientation, automated prediction of fluence map and delivery parameter generation, and also automated dose map prediction. So I thought I'll give you a little bit of a taste of the automated map prediction. So what I've done is that we have the ability now of skip the step of having dose volume histogram optimization, but going directly from, let's say, your anatomical description of the patient, which is your CT scan or your MRI, directly to the prediction of the dose. This is nice work that was published not long ago by colleagues in Canada, in which they've looked at predicting the three-dimensional dose distribution of multi-lesion lung stereotactic ablative radiation therapy by using generative adversarial network. So by using some sort of deep learning. And you can see here, this is the sort of clinical plan here on the top, that by using one of these sort of tools, they've been able to generate a dose that is very comparable to the manual dose. And as I said, a lot of this is now in progress. There is also some vendors that have tools that are now under investigations. And so I think in a few years, we'll see more and more of these tools coming in our clinics. The important part of these tools is that the dose prediction methods based on AI can generate complete treatment plans from the scan all the way to the dose sort of prediction in 12, 13 minutes without any user interaction. So this is very, very exciting. At Peter MacCallum Cancer Center, we've been very grateful to be able to receive some funding in also to also develop some of these tools. And I thought I'll give you an idea of what tools we are developing. And I have this slide courtesy of my colleague, Dr. Mathieu Gadrold, who's the main PI of this project. So what we've done is that we've looked at directly predicting the machine parameters for VMAT plans, because previous research had focused only on IMRT plans. We've been looking at predicting these machine parameters for all metastatic cancers treated with SBRT, so stereotactic body radiotherapy, and then we've also looked at predicting these machine parameters for prostate cancer, oligometastatic lung cancer, and head and neck cancer. So what we have done is that we have looked at generated a predictive treatment that contains the machine parameters and the MLC in order to then import back all this information, which we call AI RT plan, into the clinical software, so in our case, the treatment planning software, for those calculations. There are also very nice sort of initiatives around the world that use AI tools in order to aid those areas of the world where there is a very limited workforce and also in some cases very limited knowledge. One of these tools I wanted to bring up to your attention is the radiation planning assistant tool that was developed by Lawrence Court's group. And here you have the website where you can go and look at it. And this is a web-based artificial intelligence assisted tool that offers automated contouring and planning solution for the treatment of several tumor and non-tumoral specific radiotherapy indication. So this is a very exciting sort of avenue that can be useful for those areas in which, as I said, the workforce is very limited, but there is an increase of treatments. So what is the future for us in radiation oncology? So as I said, we've started by this very complex process, by this very complex workflow. And the idea is that we can go from 4 to 8 days to a process that is maybe limited to 1 or 2 days. This is useful not only to be able to speed up the treatment of our current patients, but also to speed up any adaptation of that treatment. Like, for example, if we have to replan because we have seen some tumor changes or seen some anatomical changes in the patient. So hopefully we're going to have a solution like this where we can input the CT scan and then output a plan that can be treated within 1 or 2 days. There are a lot of other exciting developments. One of them is that was presented at ASTRO not long ago, a few days ago, in which the authors have looked at automated head and neck cancer, for example, IMRT, using large language models. So I think in the future, we're going to see a lot of these applications, and it's going to be interesting to see in which direction we're going. I think it's important that we also think about the first step. So this step goes more to the diagnosis. I think what is very exciting for us is that AI give us the opportunity to study other areas and include in our plan preparation other information. And as you know, we take a lot of images during our treatment. We have images that come from pre-treatment, so before the patients get to our clinic, but we also acquire a lot of images during the treatment. In some cases, they are CT or home-beam CT, or for example, in some cases, they are MRI. And there are new machines that will allow us to also have some functional imaging. So if we can use this information either to predict how to construct our plan, but also to change the plan while it's being delivered, I think it's going to be a very exciting sort of avenue. And we have the ability nowadays, because of AI and because of very, very fast GPUs, to extract a large number of quantitative imaging features from our images that we can then correlate to outcomes and predict the outcomes of that patient. So I think obviously I'm talking about radiomics and radiomics features. And as you can see, there are a lot of developments around the world in using these tools for radiotherapy of different tumoral sites. Here I've put an example of head and neck cancer and prostate cancer. There are a lot of challenges, though, in order to use these type of imaging biomarkers. And this is nice from one of our clinicians, Dr. Gargi Kotari. Dr. Gargi Kotari at Peter MacCallum Cancer Center, in collaboration with the University of Melbourne, is looking at radiomics as a gateway to understand lung cancer. Her hypothesis is that imaging features will correlate to clinically significant oncological endpoints in patients with lung cancer. So the first thing that she did during her PhD is a systematic review and meta-analysis of the prognostic value of radiomics-based model for non-small cell lung cancer. And what she's found is very sobering. She's found that radiomics models have very modest prognostic capabilities, and a lot of it is due to the significant heterogeneity in methodology, radiomics feature selected, and performance of the models. So we need to do a lot of more work in order to be able to use these radiomic features in the prediction of our treatment, and also to look at how to adapt that treatment. There are quite a lot of initiatives. One is the standardization of imaging biomarkers, and also there is work with the astrophysics workshop on the imaging biomarker. They are all in progress in order to try to standardize more radiomics feature, and so make more easy their use in clinical practice. Obviously, the introduction of AI in clinical practice of radiation oncology has a lot of implications. Implications for the way we're going to have to commission these tools. And luckily, a lot of very smart people have put together their heads, and they have published some nice guidelines. This is from ESTRO and the AAPM, that looks at development, clinical validation, and reporting of artificial intelligence model in radiation therapy. And then obviously there are implications for the staff and the patients that are going to undergo treatment with AI tools. For the staff, obviously there is that clear concern of losing their job. And so there is a lot of discussions about AI being an enabler and be a helper toward the replacement for us in our field. And so there is, as I said, a lot of information out there that tells you and also talks about the ethics of using AI. I recommend you to have a look at that. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will be here for the Q&A session, but also you have my email here if you want to send me an email and discuss for some of these tools and topics. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Panettiere, for the lovely talk. Now we'll have the floor open for questions.
जाके बता देगा उसको.
I am Khalid Iqbal from Shaukat Khanum Hospital. My question is regarding my question is to Dr. Akila, and my question is regarding the what are the clinically implementation of AI regarding the ethical and legally challenging that you faces or someone is interested to implement the AI in radiotherapy or in medical physics department, what are the legally and ethical challenging that they are facing? Thank you.
So shall I answer? Shall I go first? Can you hear me?
Dr. Akila, we cannot hear you.
Ah,
You are mute.
it won't allow me to unmute.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. So I think the challenges we had were just that we were sending the GDPR date. I mean, there are challenges to using AI. Of course, there are. I think the biggest challenge we had to implement the use of AI was making sure that the data, the patient data that was being sent out, was in line with our requirements in the UK, that the GDPR requirements of patient privacy, that we were not sharing patient-specific data outside of the trust, and it was not just being sent out. So that was the main challenge we had from an IT and implementation perspective. We got around that. Like I said, the company that we were working with, the AI company Envision, and I'm sure all other companies do have documentation and support structures in place to help you implement and answer some of the questions. I think the other ethical questions was, well, and sort of questions for the clinical teams was, well, who's responsible? And I think we made that very clear that even though we were using AI, and we are using AI clinically for the OAR structures and for some of the CTV nodal structures, the thing we had to put in our documentation was very clearly that yes, we are using the AI. There are some challenges when using AI, when you get to, as Vanessa said as well, smaller structures or structures where even like humans would find it difficult to sort of differentiate between, say, bowel and rectum. The AI is going to have the similar problems. So it's still up to the actual users to check, validate, and then correct and take responsibility for that. So our responsibilities are clearly documented in our work instructions. That's for the dosimetrists doing the contouring. That is also for the consultants who are doing the CTV contours. So we haven't taken any responsibilities away. What we've said to them, AI is a tool that you can use that is going to help you and sort of streamline the processes, but the responsibilities are quite clearly still with the individuals. Does that answer your question? I hope that does. I don't know if Vanessa wants
Yeah,
to jump
thank you.
in.
Noman?
It's a very interesting session, and I have learned a lot from it. I have a question that how much precision and recall has been improved so far in the radiation therapy with the help of artificial intelligence tools? My second question is that it has been discussed here, deep learning, neural networking. It is a part of ANN, but how the other AI tools, interactive case-based reasoning, and pattern mapping and pattern recognition has been introduced in the field of radiation therapy? Please guide us in this regard. Thanks.
Miss Vanessa?
Yes, sorry. I was unable to unmute myself, so I missed. Could you kindly repeat the first question?
My first question
Oh,
is
good.
that,
Thank you.
how much precision and recall has been improved so far in the radiation therapy planning and in radiation prep with the help of artificial intelligence? And my second question that you have discussed the deep learning ANN tools, but the other tools, pattern recognition and interactive case-based reasoning, also applied in the field. How much they have improved the performance in radiation therapy?
Yeah,
Please
that's a
guide
very,
us.
yeah, no, it's very good question. Like currently what we are doing is use some of these tools and compare to our current plans. So, you know, we're still using as a reference very, very highly, you know, well-made plans that our radiation therapists or physicists have prepared. So I think we're going to see the real improvement in these tools in the future when we're going to start rebuilding these models with you know, these plans that have been created with automated tools. We have seen that with RapidPlan, which is, as you know, very simple in terms of the way it deals with the data. It's supervised machine learning. However, what we've seen is that it has allowed us to decrease some of the doses to our organs at risk. And now that we are rebuilding these models by using plans that were done with these tools, we're seeing the real benefit of them. So I think this is all coming up. So it's very hard to say, but certainly in the future we're going to see an improvement, I think, in the way the plans are done. And another important part is that we will also have more consistency between different planners, because sort of that human expertise will be less important in this case. I hope I replied to your question.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vanessa.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Chow, I have a question for you. How much time will it take to use those gold particles in clinical implementation? And the second question is regarding, have you ever done any study regarding to reduce the total dose while using gold markers?
I think the gold level particle radiotherapy, I think this proposed for quite a long time, and as I remember, they have a lot of research grant in North America. They're working on that in the cell model and then the preclinical model, and there's some clinical trials on that. The gold level particle or the heavy element particle can act as the not only the dose enhancer but imaging contrast agent for that. So that's a very good things. And clinical trials, these are ongoing, and I would expect this kind of therapy will come come to in practice very soon. Yeah. And I am sorry, I can you repeat the second question?
So can we reduce the total dose? Like for prostate, we are delivering 60 gray or 74 gray. With the gold particles, will it be able to reduce the total dose or reducing the treatment time? Prescription dose, sorry.
We have tried many many possibilities. Let's use the gold particle for different radiation beams, proton, photon, electrons. In the simulations, we can do almost everything for that. Like different radiation beams, all the parameters of the particle, whether it's gold or other elements, the patterns, the concentration of the particles, and so on. It helps very much about the gold level particle radiotherapies. The thing is that because like the simulation, so we are not very interested in how to deliver that gold level particle at the tumors, but we actually have some drop agents or the drop carriers which can carry the gold level particles to the tumor. And we can attach the gold level particle with different part of functional group, and so we'll give different anti-drop and anti-tumor features to the tumor and kill the cancer cells. So that's what I know for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. James. So thank you very much, everyone. We have just reached at the end of the session. So I would like to say special thanks to Dr. Vanessa, Dr. Akila, and Dr. James. That was a wonderful session. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you and goodbye for till next year.